Check, check. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Today we're checking out the top 10 drone techniques to get amazing film. So I've been thinking about what makes the best drone shots for like the past few months, and I think I've come up with the best 10. In this video we're going to be using the DJI Phantom 3 Professional, but it'll actually work with any drone or quadcopter, or actually a helicopter or quadcopter or anything that flies essentially. It also has to have a camera. I mean, that's sort of important. First off, if you're filming something static like a house or a building or a sunset, here are some techniques that I've found look really professional. So first off is the basic hover. It's simple but boring, but since your drone is going to be at least fairly high in the sky, it's a point of view that most people don't get to see every day. So just like videotaping something or even just a photo is really interesting when you're in a drone, just because it is higher than what most people see on the ground. Throughout this video I'm going to draw a few schematics so you can see the plan, so when we get into more complex arrangements of where the drone is and where your subject is, so we can get that all clear, we're going to draw it out. But here, this is a pretty simple one. You have the basic cover, so here's your drone and then here's your subject. Yeah. After that is the pan. You have to have some sort of a gimbal attached to your drone, which the Phantom 3s, all of them do. The standard professional, actually there's advanced 4K, I think that's all of them. There's a difference between the Phantom 3 Professional and the Phantom 3 4K. They're not the same thing. So anyways, the Phantom 3 4K does not have a light bridge, that's the main thing. But anyways, we're getting off topic. So after your basic cover, we have the pan. So you have to have a gimbal or some sort of aftermarket gimbal to attach your GoPro or something like that. So you want to move it. So it's like a slow rise or a slow drop down. Is that what you call that? Rise, fall, slow fall, essentially. So don't follow your drone. Drone stays in the same spot, but the gimbal sort of just rotates up and down, and it gives a very, very nice feeling. If you want to get even more cinematic, you can add a slight turn of the drone while you're rising, and it looks just spectacular. After that, we've got a simple rise of the drone. I do this quite a bit. You can either have the gimbal camera pointed straight forward or straight down. It actually looks pretty cool too when you just go straight up as fast as you can. It doesn't have to be as fast as you can, but it's more interesting when you go really fast. After that, we've got a nice fast forward moving thing that actually looks, I found to be the best when it's nice and low to the ground, because when you're high up you can't really tell. You know how like if you're in an airplane you're going like 500 miles per hour but like you're barely moving if you look at the ground? It's the same way, whereas if your drone is flying just like a foot above the ground or something like that, it makes it feel like it's going a lot faster. You can also do fast backwards, which is nice if you have a subject like a person running or a biker. If you can keep up to them, it looks really cool when you just track somebody forward or backward. You can also go side to side. It's just your basic drone maneuvers. You can even add some sort of a spin if you want to. So if you're turning like to the left, you can sort of turn the yaw axis, I believe that's what it's called, slightly to the right. Or if you're turning to the left, I don't even know what I'm saying, but if you counter sort of turn it, it'll look pretty cool because it'll be like tracking. So some of you may be wondering what the difference is between this and those automatic settings in your drone. I've never really been fond of those automatic, the follow me. There's been a lot of cases where that just flies away, but then also just when you circle around something, yeah, it's good, but I would much rather actually pilot it and have the controls so you know what you're getting, instead of just programming it to fly a circle, because what happens if it doesn't fly a circle and then it never comes back? Dun dun dun. Alright, let's move on. This is a pretty important one. It's just with all drone photography. You don't want it to look like what I call FPV race. looking footage. So that's when you're like flying really fast and jerky movements and flipping and yada yada yada. So you don't want it to look like that. The important thing with that is you want to have either one shot, well, essentially you can have multiple shots, but each shot should have its own set sort of path. So it should go in one direction, or if you have a turn, it should go in like a constant turn, or like an even. If it's a long one, you can have it sort of like weave in and out, but it should kind of have a nice fluid feeling instead of like the drone races where it's like in and out and turning around and around and around. I don't think you ever really want to turn more than like 360 degrees, or else your viewers will get sick. So typically you just want one slowish, or add some speed if you're low to the ground or want to make something interesting, or if you're tracking somebody, you should go around the same speed as them, but we'll get into that later. But it's typically in one direction. Let's talk about the importance of foreground movement. Now this is something I've found makes your movies or clips or whatever look very cinematic, because this is actually what many movies do, and you may not even notice it. So essentially you have your camera in one spot, and this applies to all filmmaking, but we're going to use our drone because we're talking about drones. So essentially you have your drone in one part, and then there's like your subject or whatever you're wanting to be important is pretty far back, and then you have something closer than that, like a tree or something like that, and then when you move, it makes it really three-dimensional, because your subject is like staying in the same spot, but then there's stuff in the foreground that moves, which makes you feel like you're moving, and it's really cinematic. Just putting that out there. As I talked about before, there are some pre-programmed auto features with the Phantom 3 and some other drones, like the orbiting features, what I talked about before, where it like spins around an object. And I guess if I'm honest, that's kind of cheating, because, well, first off, it's not going to look as good. I've seen it's a little jerky because it's computer programming. So if you actually pilot it, it's more impressive than if you just tell it to fly in a circle, or from point A to point B to point C, which you can now do, but I don't understand why you wouldn't just want to fly that yourself. And if you want to do that so you can be in the shot, that's probably dangerous, because what happens when your drone crashes? You probably want somebody else flying it if you're going to be in the shot. Plus, it actually looks better when you're like actually flying it instead of having the computer do it, and then it's much I don't actually know, because there's quite a few people who do crash their drones when they're flying it, but if you're an experienced pilot, it's much less likely to malfunction. You're less likely to malfunction than if you're having a computer autopilot, at least right now. Maybe in the future it'll be better, like those self-driving cars, but we're on drones. No cars right now. So let's talk about moving subjects. If you're filming something that's moving, like a person running or a car driving, you may want to use a slightly different technique. Typically, you either want a static shot or a pan or something, or you can move with the subject at the same speed and angle, or you can spice it up with sort of slowing down or speeding up with them. You see this in a lot of like car commercials. Well, they'll like come up beside the car, stuff like that. I don't know. Typically you want to just like keep the same angle, and then it'll just move with your subject, but you want to make sure that you're okay to do this, and you're not just randomly flying above some random person in the neighborhood. That'd be a little weird. Now, a more advanced one is moving around the subject in like a semicircle or something like that. This is pretty tricky. If you have the Inspire 1, it's a lot easier, because you can have dual operators, and one can fly the actual drone and then the other person can operate the camera. But like with most drones, like the Phantom 3, it's pretty difficult, because you gotta change the way it's going forward, because the camera doesn't move side to side. So that's more of a skilled movement. You can actually go in the opposite direction of the subject, which looks really cool, but it typically only lasts a few seconds. As you can see from this running shot right here, there's nothing that really happens after it. So if you follow the person, it can be a much longer shot, but if you're both going towards each other, it's not going to be as long of a shot. All of these techniques do take a lot of practice, and it usually would take multiple attempts. That's why it's difficult to film some sort of a live event with these. It usually, like in movies or something, it'll take quite a few. When you're making a short film, it'll take a couple of attempts to really get the exact shot you want. Even if you're not filming a subject, just filming a sunset, you may have like a specific shot you want, and then that's really the best way. I don't know. Typically, if you're just filming something static, you're going to want to think beforehand. That's what a good pilot does. What spots you're going to go to and like how the drone is going to look. And you can use many of these same examples that I've shown you in this video, and they look really, really nice and professional. Definitely, it's going to take a lot of practice, so you should bring extra memory cards and batteries and expect delays. I can add a little bit. I know this video is kind of long, but I've recently went to a shoot of a building, and I was supposed to take off, or what I was planning was to take off over this garage, and the metal in the because it was an above ground sort of garage, so it was all metal. So when I put my drone on top of this garage here, since it was all metal, it threw off the compass and it went all wonky, and it was really difficult. So what I had to end up doing was start the drone off. I actually had to calibrate it like 3 times because I had no clue what was going on. So I took off from the road like behind the garage, so the entrance essentially, and I had to fly up over the garage and then start flying the actual patterns that I was thinking before. So moral of the story, essentially, you can expect to find some sort of difficulty or something's not quite going to work out, and you just got to problem solve and figure out how you can get that shot that you were thinking about. Definitely comment down below your favorite one, or if I missed some. There's new ones coming all the time. I mean, the possibilities are just endless, so you can choose a freestyle one or experiment with new movements that make your video look awesome. If you like this video, you should consider subscribing to stay up to date on others like it. Drones are really becoming very popular, and if you want to stay ahead of everybody else, essentially, you can use these techniques, and they'll make your video look much superior, I guess, to all the other people who have FPV looking footage. If you understand, like, FPV is doing flips, which, I mean, that stuff looks cool, but if you're making a movie, you don't want your video to look like a drone FPV shot racing thing. Yeah, okay, that's the end of the video. I'm just gonna cut it off right now. Thank you for watching.